Hey guys, welcome back to After Hours. Excuse the attire. We're in the middle of a heat wave in the Isle of Man. They got it in the UK last week, and now we seem to be in the grips of it. So definitely not complaining. But I've been working in the gardens today. So for the people that are listening on audio, I'm sat here with my hair all over the place, my John Deere hat on, and my vest top. So yeah. Today we have Mike Longthorn on the podcast. Mike's got, an amazing story. He had a business which kind of went, I don't want to say belly up because it didn't really go belly up. It was more, it just kind of ran out of steam, different kind of aspects that kind of brought it down. And doing that, he then decided to go into like therapy, counselling. So he did his 4 years in that. And then towards the end of that, he kind of decided that, alcohol wasn't serving him anymore. Now, Mike's not, full blown alcoholic addict or anything like that. Potentially, a little bit grey area drinker, but more so that it was just having a massive negative impact on his life. It kind of, we talk about it kind of, having a massive effect on people that are, possibly introverted, but the alcohol manages to bring them out of that. And, that was certainly the case with Mike. He is, I think his handle is the alcohol-free introvert. So you find him on Instagram and put that on the show notes. But we talked about it, using alcohol as a coping mechanism. How it can be a block on creativity, and escapism. So we talk about a lot of things in there. It's a different episode this week because, as I say, Mike isn't a full-blown kind of alcoholic, for want of a better word. So we just really discuss the kind of main aspects of what alcohol brings to people and actually what it doesn't bring to people. I think we're both kind of on a similar wavelength, even on different levels of the spectrum of, the alcohol problem. So yeah, it's a great episode. Really, really had a great time speaking to Mike, and I hope you guys do too. I think I spoke about Tim all day. That's still fresh in my mind because that was only a Monday. It was an amazing time, and I think what it did kind of highlight for me was that I had it in my head that people and friends of ours and friends of friends were all going to be drinking, and I think I built that up in my head that was going to be this kind of huge issue for me. I've said on the pod that I do go to kind of social events and things, but because Jen wanted me to stay right to the end when the pipers were playing and all that, I think I built it up in my head, and you know what, like it was great fun. It was one of the best nights that I've had, and I stayed right to the end to listen to the bagpipers and absolutely loved it. So, from that, I think it highlighted that even if you're kind of got so much anxiety about going to something because you think you're not going to enjoy it, just do it. Just do it. Try it. Do you know what I mean? It's, what's the worst that can happen? You come back and you go, well, I'm not doing that again, but it didn't kill you. So yeah, it was a great day, night, and 23 days until the wedding. So, that's kind of the main focus of everything at the moment. Obviously doing the podcasts and working, but that's kind of taking up our weekends and our mental space at the moment. So I'm really enjoying doing the videos, guys. I haven't actually obviously you'll have seen two of them hopefully now, but I haven't gone when they've been dropped on Spotify and actually watched it back yet. So I'm quite excited about that. That's probably not going to be until quite a few weeks down the road. Obviously this will be coming out, I think, in late August, maybe September. So I'm talking to you in the future, talking to myself in the future. So I'll stop rambling now and we'll listen to Mike. Listen for the similarities, guys, because I think you'll find a lot in Mike's story. So I'll see you at the end. Cheers, guys. Bye bye. Mike, welcome to After Hours. What's the name of your cat? I can see the cat just hiding at the.
Jimmy, I'm so pleased you've asked. This is Mabel. Mabel's nearly always on the screen. She just sits up there all the time. I've got two cats and a whippet as
Yeah,
well. But yeah,
nice.
this is Mabel. I mean, we have red squirrels in Anglesey, and she's rarer than red. She never goes out. Nobody ever sees her, apart from all my clients and any video Zoom meetings I do on here. She's always on there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is, and thank you, Mike, for coming on. This is like I think this is the second one that I'm doing with video. So, I thought I'll start off with pointing out something on the video that the people listening in audio won't be able to know what we're talking about. But there's a beautiful cat sitting in a little hammock, which is attached to the wall, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we've got three cats actually. One's gone walkabout at the moment, but she'll hopefully come back soon. But yeah, those things look awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
cool.
So how are you today,
Yeah, very
Mike?
good. It's
Thanks
been a
for coming
busy
on.
day. It's been a busy day. I looked at my day this morning. I thought this is right through from like 10 in the morning, meeting after meeting. I thought I've got the podcast at 6 o'clock as well. How am I going to feel? I feel all right. I feel ready for it. It's good.
Good,
Yeah,
good. You've got good energy. That's
yeah,
good. That's what we
yeah.
want. Well, we won't keep you all night, mate.
That's good.
So I do appreciate you giving up the time. It's been a hectic day for me too. I've got three step kids, and I had to pick them up from school, get them to the dentist, and then it was a quick turnaround because they're going over to different dance clubs and brownies and things like that. So yeah, it's one of those ones. But we've managed to do everything so far, and I'm here on time for you. So thank you. Yeah, Mike, your story is a little bit, well, it's not different from, you know, the majority of them, but so tell the listeners a little about yourself, maybe when you had your first drink and how your childhood was to start with.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, start at the start, shall I? Childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, really happy childhood. Great parents, and yeah, all good really. It's funny because I did some therapy back 18 months ago, and my early times at school, I was very what they would say shy at the time. What I probably didn't know meant introverted at the time, but I think I didn't communicate with people so well because I felt different, and it was only through therapy that I realised why I felt different. And it was because I'm dyslexic, and I could sense that probably from a very young age, although I didn't know it at the time, and it was only sort of working back through this. So yeah, I kind of struggled. I made close friends, on ones here and there, but going through school and speaking in front of people was really difficult for me. Writing on the board, getting spellings wrong and stuff was extremely embarrassing, and it felt quite difficult. And kids are kids; they don't mean to be bad. But take the mick out of the spelling or stuttering or stammering or whatever that looked like. So yeah, I just felt different, and although I did enjoy school on the whole, it's good. But that's probably kind of highlighted to me recently was something that through therapy that I realised that yeah, that's kind of a thing that kind of held me back a little bit. Uh, yeah, fast forward into probably when I first had a drink was probably around. I think this is quite common in the UK for parents to give their kids a little drink at sort of, and it like 10, 11, just and nothing else until you get into your early teens. So like, yeah, I tried my dad's beer and it was horrible at, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old. And I think, and then you get to sort of 16 and you're out with your mates off, maybe even younger than that, 14 or 15,
Yeah.
and you come across some alcohol somehow, and it was disgusting. Yeah, like most people, the first taste is pretty rank. But I persevered with it because it's kind of that's what happens in society, isn't it? It's everywhere, and that's kind of it's almost kind of a rite of passage to go into that first pub and get your first beer and
Yeah.
hopefully not get turned down at sort of 16, 17. Having said that, I mean, I think the actual checks are a lot more stringent than there was back when I
Oh,
was that age.
it's a weird kind of social construct, like you say, dads and mums maybe having a little sip of wine or beer, and it's like looking from my side of the fence now, I'm like, it's so kind of it's showing the wrong types of behaviors, isn't it? Because we're kind of basically not glamorizing it, but saying this is okay because society's saying that what we're doing is okay. Now, from my standpoint, it's a poison and it causes seven types of cancers, and it's like it's almost crazy that parents are offering it to their children, and I know it's just a little amount, and I know that it's a socially acceptable thing in society, but from where I'm sitting now, I'm like, kind of, my God, what are we doing? It's almost like it's like offering your kids some drugs, isn't it? You know, because essentially it is a drug. But and it's in my mind it's madness, but I know it happens, and it is. I guess in places like France and maybe even Germany, they're kind of taught to respect alcohol a little bit more, and I think they're given it with like meals and things, and then I suppose for us it's this forbidden fruit that we get a sip of at like maybe 10, 11. So then when we get to 14, 15, we're not allowed to do it until we're 18. But obviously we're going to do it. So we're going to do it down the park or try and get into pubs like forbidden fruit. I think it's because it is this kind of this barrier that we're not allowed to do it. So we must do it because, you know, let's be honest, Brits are a bit kind of, you know, rule breakers, aren't we? Well, we are now, but yeah, I think there's that whole thing. Whereas I think in France and Germany, they've maybe got a little bit more um, respect towards alcohol than I think we do. And I think we see that on, you know, I hate to mention it, but if you see the football fans going on holiday abroad when there's a game on, they do not show us up. They don't do us proud, do they, when they go abroad? Whereas, you know, other fans from different nations coming over here are like, they're respectful and they do what they do. Whereas we just go out abroad and get absolutely twatted and show us up. I'm going off on a tangent there, Mike, but yeah, going back to what you're saying about like school. I guess, I mean, you said earlier you're 50, I'm 45. Dyslexia wasn't really a thing in school, was it? They didn't really diagnose people, or you know, maybe that's the wrong word, but you know, they didn't kind of have certain things in place for people with dyslexia. It wasn't really a thing. It was just like, oh, well, you're falling behind. Well, you must be thick or this and that. So then the other kids, of course, they're going to see a weakness and they're going to prey on it, and that has so much of a detrimental effect to people in their adulthood now that weren't kind of properly. Is diagnosed the right word?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, and what you kind of just looping back to what you said about that societal sort of view on alcohol as well. And as kids, we kind of given it, and it's almost as the well, this is the coping mechanism of the future, and we kind of embed that in a really young age of like this self-medicating. It's almost those first sips of when we hate alcohol. It's like we're going to learn to love it. So when we get into work and when we faced with stress or we want to bury our emotions, we can just have a beer, have a glass of wine, vodka, whatever that looks like, and that negative coping mechanism sort of slips away. Yeah, and it's really interesting, and I'm really interested in the point about different countries as well. And I think you've got a really interesting point. And I wonder how that happens. I wonder why there's a more respect for alcohol in different countries, because I understand exactly where you're coming from, and that kind of that example with the football fans is really insightful actually. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's you know, like Germany is a massive drinking culture. They have, you know, the Oktoberfest and all of that, and France obviously, you know, the mother place of wine and all that. But they don't. I'm sure they have people with like alcohol use disorder. I'm not saying that, but we seem to have this massive underage binge drinking kind of epidemic from an early age. I don't know if it's as bad now. I think the young, like Gen Z or Gen Z, I think they're getting a little bit better at that. I don't think they're doing what we did. There wasn't much to do when we were about, you know, 14, 15. It was just like go down the park and,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
get some Merry Down or Mad Dog 2020. But I think, and I might be wrong, you know, maybe France and Germany, I didn't grow up there. Maybe they do have that whole underage thing. It just seems that they do have a bit more, like I've been out with French people back when I was drinking, and they would sit, you know, we were having a meal or whatever, and they would sit with maybe a glass of wine the entire meal. Whereas us Brits would be kind of topping it up and, you know, waiter, garçon, another bottle for the table. Do you know what I mean? But they would manage to make that. And that could have just been the individuals that I was with, but it seems they have a little bit more decorum, if that's the right word, over it, and
Yeah.
respect. They're not like, I think Brits as a whole, we drink to get shit faced. That's
Mm,
kind of our ethos. And
mm,
I know I'm blanket, you know, kind of canvassing the entire country, and I know not everyone's like that, and I think people are getting better. But from my experience, and maybe I did grow up with a lot of drinkers, you know, but not like majority of my friends aren't. Well, I would say 99% of my friends haven't ended up like me. They've been able to, you know, control the drinking and all that, but. I think there's a lot of people in this country that they drink when it's been a good day at work. They drink when it's been a bad day at work. They drink when, we go hiking. We have a drink in the pub afterwards, or if we go to the theatre, there's a bar. The cinema, you can now go and have a couple of pints, which I hated because I'd have like two before we went in, and then I'd need a wee halfway through. But I like what you're saying about, the kind of social aspect of it, and drinking, like after work and things like that. But like it's also the social aspect. If once we're coming up and we're using it as this kind of tool, we use it as a tool to socialize in a work environment. All like I got sober at 40, and I didn't know how to socialize without a drink. And that's from 14.
Well, this is it, isn't it? This is it. And I think this is where the training starts, isn't it? So, yeah, had my first drink around about 16, starting to go to the pubs. And then we're a similar age, kind of 5 years in between it. And for me, it was kind of the like early 90s or 1990, early 90s. And house music was a huge thing. It was kind of coming up massively. So with the drink, it was kind of more into drugs for me, probably, and more ecstasy, and having fun with that, and drinking probably less at that stage. And looking back now, I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I probably did myself less damage in many ways, because it was only a weekend, and it wasn't a huge amount. And then as kind of years went on into my late 20s and early 30s, started getting into drinking more. When I was going out, I was drinking. But it was never a huge amount. There was some big nights and some binge nights, but it was never a huge amount. And I think for probably, I always say about 10 years, but it must be about maybe even more, maybe 12 years. I had real ambivalence to saying, I want to stop this drinking. It's not serving me whatsoever. Because in the early parts of my career, I remember I would be at work feeling really anxious, feeling not confident with customers, not being cognitively aware, and I wouldn't be confident at all. And when I look back now, it was because of alcohol and drugs that I wasn't confident, because it's great when you're on them, but it's the kind of the fallout afterwards, isn't it? It's the hangover and the come down. And then trying to fight and grapple with your neurochemistry when you're in that real low spot of coming down or on a hangover, it's just really difficult. I used to, like many people probably listening, I would have nights where maybe I wouldn't go to sleep, and I'd go into work the next day. In my early 20s, I used to work for Audi, and I'd try and sort of and I worked for them for 10 years, and it didn't destroy my job or anything. But
And what were you in sales or?
yeah, I was in sales. Yeah, I reckon I could have sold a lot more Audis if I'd have been a lot more cars if I'd have been
Yeah.
with it,
Yeah.
And but it was all about kind of partying. I get home. I was into making music at the time, as well as a kind of like
Nice.
as kind of a hobby with a mate. I used to have a house. We used to have a house together. It's great. Get home every night, smoke a lot of weed, get on the Cubase, and make a lot of tracks and stuff. And it's great fun. It's great fun.
You've
But
been
yeah,
productive as well. That's the thing, because you can do that in your early 20s. You're maybe having a bit of a
yeah,
smoke,
yeah.
probably a couple of beers. But sorry to butt in, but like going back to what you're saying about the ecstasy, I was exactly the same. As soon as I started with the ecstasy, maybe when I was about 16, 17, 18, and yeah, the drinking went out the window, because we used to go to the Arches in Glasgow, and there was very few people drinking in there, and you could spot them a mile off. One of our mates, who wanted to be a dentist, he is a dentist now. He didn't want to touch any of that. He would smoke a bit of weed, that was it. But he don't want to do any of the Class A's, and you could see him wandering into the dance floor like a mile off, because he was a staggering drunk, and we were like, what's this is not what partying's all about. But like, yeah, as I got older, we can't do that all the time, because the come downs take about 2 or 3 days to get over. And so drinking's just easier, because you don't have to go and find the man, waiting on the side of the corner,
Yeah,
and all of that
yeah.
stuff. But it's interesting how we do that, and then see. I've said it before on here. Like, I think a lot of the drugs should be decriminalized. Like, let's be honest. If you've got alcohol, which is probably one of the most harmful drugs, it's the second most harmful drug, which is legal. Why are we not decriminalizing the rest? Do you know what I mean? It's going to take us a lot of stuff off the hands of the cartels, and stop a lot of this kind of county lines, kind of kids getting stabbed and all that. Just decriminalize it, and bring it out of the cartel's hands. Because to be honest, the drugs, the majority of deaths linked with drugs are more over gang violence than actually taking the drugs themselves. Obviously, I understand that heroin and meth and fentanyl and all this stuff, these are killers, of course, but the alcohol deaths in the world, I think in 2023 was 1 point, I'm going to get it wrong again. I think it was 1.8 million worldwide due to alcohol, and all the illicit drugs put together were only about 4 to 500,000, which is, it's insane, isn't it? Yeah.
It is insane, and when you say that, I always think there are many drugs that are street drugs and illegal that are now transferring over, because I'm a qualified therapist as well,
Yeah.
into a therapeutical sort of setting as well. If you look at MDMA and also
Mushrooms.
mushrooms, yeah,
Yeah.
and LSD to an effect as well, and maybe ketamine. Can you ever see alcohol having a therapeutic benefit?
I mean, they used to say it did. I had someone on the other day whose grandfather was like, I think he's in his 80s, and he said, "Oh, it's good that you've given up alcohol, but I'm still going to have my glass of wine a day because it's good for me." And he just was like, because that's what they've been told, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Professor David Nutt, and I put this in the last podcast, he did a survey and he said that if alcohol went through the food and standards test, it would be recognized that the safe levels of alcohol would be 1 glass of wine per year, 250 mils of wine per year. So in actual fact, what they do with alcohol is they don't put it through the test because they know it'd fail. So it's like, what's going on here? But they used to say, "Oh, a glass of wine will do you good. A glass of wine a day will do you good." But there's literally no evidence to support that at all. And yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I heard that stat from David Nutt, and
yeah,
it's interesting how stats like that don't reach the mainstream, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
And what's all that about?
I mean, is it weird or is it just, as I say, I don't want to go into conspiracy, but there it is. Another stat is that in 1988, the World Health Organization classified alcohol as a Category 1 carcinogen with tobacco, asbestos, and radiation. Why does nobody know about that? You know, it's it's crazy. So, how did you get into? Okay, so tell us a little bit about your life. So you were a car salesman, and then
Yeah,
I know
and
we keep
then
going off the
I
tangents.
so working at Audi, I started to I got a job as at the time they were trying to push the A8, which is their biggest car.
Hmm.
So I was given this title A8 advocate, and that allowed me to work with business owners. So we'd start giving business owners cars for a weekend or a week to drive, because it was up against the Mercedes and the BMW big cars, and Audi were quite far behind at that time. It was kind of like about 25 years ago, and I got speaking to a lot of business owners, and I was thinking I quite like this business owner thing of kind of having your own sort of destiny, having your own business, and it feels quite free and quite liberal. And that got me thinking about my own business. And in 2008, I ended up, I was going to say leaving, but I got sacked. I never had any written warnings or anything. However, we started a business with my ex-wife and another friend on in Wellies of all things, importing
All
them from
right.
China. Yeah, importing
Yeah,
from
yeah.
China, and it was Wellies with a wedge. So we had a design registration on this wedge. We went on Dragon's Den 2 years later and got investment and worked with Theo for 3 years. But it's kind of long stories. But the story of getting kind of from Audi was I started sending these packages out when we were a really small business, and I used to put them on the reception. But at the same time, I think unconsciously, I was kind of done with the whole sales thing and the way it was working there. And the new management I didn't really like. I was doing well at the time and I was selling a lot of cars, but I don't think they liked that I was outspoken. And I started sending these packages out from the reception, and the general manager caught me doing this once. Basically, yeah, I got fired for that, but it was kind of a nice kind of
One
fire.
time.
One time, but they
I
let
mean,
me.
at one time caught. Sorry, but
Yeah,
yeah,
one
but
time
like,
caught. Yeah, one time caught. But because I was becoming outspoken, they wanted me out of the business. They knew I had this
yeah,
business. They knew my heart wasn't in it. But the funny thing is, they let me keep my company Audi for another month. So it was quite a sort of weird sort of firing situation.
yeah.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, and I think I felt this with my coaching business as well. Yeah, I was kind of put with backs against the wall at the time, thinking I need to make this work. This needs to bring in money now. And sure enough, within a month, I got a company called JD Williams on. Then I got ASOS on, some big names, and Debenhams were in as well. So I started to get big companies on board. And the business lasted until, there's all sorts of kind of ups and downs. We kind of launched a fashion label as well, and it lasted till 2019. And just as
Okay.
COVID was
Wow.
starting, it went under because there was all sorts of challenges with fashion at the time. At the time, we'd kind of grown from, we had a warehouse in Hull where I used to live, and we used to start producing the clothing down in Leicester as well. So we had a cut measure trim unit, a CMT unit in Leicester where we employed some people as well. And I was living down there at the time. And so it all basically we were scaling really quickly, Jimmy. And then the banks were behind us, giving us invoice financing, all that. And there was kind of a perfect storm in as much as we had.
Was this before 2008 then?
Yeah, well, we started 2008 in the business,
Oh,
and
so
we went
like
under in
literally
2019. So it's like 12 years the business was.
But that's start of the credit crunch, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, we started
2008. So you kind of went straight off that, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it was good, and I think there's, without kind of going too much into that, but there's a lot to be said in that statement because we all look at the national news, you all think this is bad, that's bad, or this is good, that's good, because we look at a big overview of what's going on. Actually, it's each individual person's life is different, and I think it's a good point to remember that. Yeah. And it was good for us. It was a good start as well. But then in 2019, because of quality issues and returns and other companies going under, I think House of Fraser went under at the time. Debenhams went under. Their cost us a fortune. The whole lot with quality issues ended up costing about 300 grand, and we was trying to keep the business afloat. We couldn't do it when we went under because we owed 300 grand to the bank. Nobody else really, just 300 grand to the bank. So when I say I went bankrupt, it's funny because I got a hater on Instagram because I had a bit of a post about going bankrupt, and I didn't even engage in it. But they didn't know it was. I cost the RBS 300 grand. I probably paid the RBS 300 grand in invoice finances, and it was the RBS that caused the bloody problem in 2008 anyway. So
Yeah.
it's almost like some weird synchronicity there anyway. So I absolutely don't feel guilty about that one. But what happened, Jimmy, after that business went under is that I thought this whole thing about kind of making money for shareholders, which was myself, making money and selling fast fashion, it just didn't sit right with me. And at the time, I'd gone through a divorce in 2015. I was with a new partner at the time, and her friends were like teachers, people in the forces, police. Basically, there was people who were contributing to the environment, contributing to society, should we say.
Yeah.
And I felt it's funny, isn't it? Because they say the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And almost all of a sudden, I thought I need a bit of that. I need to be doing something. There's a misalignment, and I did feel it towards the end of my business. I thought this doesn't feel right for me selling fast fashion, just thinking about money all the time. And so I wanted to do something that's going to help, going to add value to people's lives. And I know my partner had real success with counselling. I hadn't had counselling at the time. And I thought, I'll check out this level 2, see what that's like. Did a level 2 and instantly got really interested in it. And through my own journey of kind of going through the level 3, then the level 4 kind of diploma at uni level, and doing therapy myself as well, it kind of, I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the idea that people's lives can be changed just from a relationship.
Yeah.
For the underpinning of it is about the relationship. And it was 6 months towards the end of that course that I finally thought, and this was my last bit of therapy as well, I thought I'm going to try ditching booze for the last time. I'm going to put like some sessions of therapy in January and just kind of hold me to account through that period. And that was a success. That was the start of success. And as I got to the 90, 100 days, it really felt like, and I talk about this a lot, it really felt like the pull away from alcohol was bigger than the pull towards alcohol for me. And I felt clarity. I felt like I was getting the workouts in all the time. I felt like I was better than ever with clients. I was really in the relationship in every single way and every level. And it was better than I ever had been. I had more available capacity cognitively. And I have this indoor trainer, this Zwift thing, and I was on Zwift one day and I was listening to a podcast from Rangan Chatterjee, and he had Andy Ramage on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Andy Ramage mentioned about coaching that he was doing, and I thought I quite fancy that because I'd got this alcohol-free thing. I was just approaching 100 days, and I was starting to be quite evangelical about it.
When was your quit date then?
Well, it's like the typical January the 1st, and it actually
Right,
worked.
yeah, yeah.
Amazing, isn't it? Yeah, it's one of the few that worked. Yeah, so December the 31st was the last one, and then January the 1st, yeah.
What year
So
was
I
that?
booked the therapy sessions in from that, and that kind of held me to account, got me through that first sort of 6 weeks. But as it went on, I started kind of, yeah, and the more information we kind of consumed about alcohol, starting to tell my friends, my family, I think I just started to piss people off. I needed an outlet to really sort of help the people that wanted to be helped, yeah?
Yeah.
Because, yes, my partner, it sounds similar to your partner, as you said before on the air, Jimmy. She drinks very little and she can have a glass of wine here and there, and that's it. It's amazing. I mean, there's a few people like that, as you said. Um, but yeah, so I got to this situation of I need to spread the word. So I jumped on Andy's course, was on that for 6 months, met some amazing people there, and trained in that whole alcohol-free performance space. And then yeah, just started the Instagram back in November last year, and
Hmm.
things have built quite slowly for that. And I'm currently working with a coach on my actual business, Sean Holden, who's kind of really helped me kind of make it into a real full-time thing now. So it's
Yeah.
great. It's
Yeah.
going well. Yeah.
That's great. You know, I love that. I mean, I've done, I think it's level 2 on peer mentoring, but I did that through our addiction charity over here called Motivate. So I'm kind of doing that one morning. I think it's a month or it's every 2 weeks, something like that. We kind of mix it about because there's a few other peer mentors, and it's not my full time job, but it is something that I want to kind of slowly build into. And I was the same with you when I set up my Instagram. I'd done a bit of Instagram before, and kind of when I was sober curious, well, when I needed to give up, but I hadn't quite got there. And then when I got sober, and I knew that was the last time, I set my page up, and I was like, I'm not gonna. You know how you can go through Instagram and just add all your friends? I thought I'm not gonna do that because I don't want them to have to constantly see, oh, there's another thing from Jimmy. I thought if they find me and they want to add me, that's fine. But I've not gone out seeking them. I said I want this page to be for like-minded people, people that are struggling or people that are ahead of me in the game. And you know, and even in 5 years, that community has just grown so rapidly, you know, and I love it. And I think there are a lot of people, and the more the merrier, the people that are kind of, you know, like yourself, counselors or sober coaches and this, that, and the other, because the world needs it, you know, and I think not everybody wants to go. See, for me, my main tools of recovery were going to the meetings. I went to NA, even though drugs wasn't a big problem for me. They were like, alcohol's a drug. You're welcome here. The AA group over here was a bit. It was a good group, but it wasn't the NA group. They were more my type of people. So I went to that religiously, not religiously because I'm not religious, but I went to it militantly, if that makes sense. And you know, my higher power was the universe. But for me, I kind of needed that tool at the beginning. But I know there's so many people that are they don't want to go to the rooms, or they think that the fellowship is a kind of religious thing, and that's fine. It's not, but you know, I get why people don't go to it. But then there's Smart, which I went to as well. I literally just, you know, went around the whole lot. I felt a little bit like Edward Norton in, you know, Fight Club when he goes to all these self-help groups. You know, obviously I needed them, and I loved it. You know, it was a social aspect. But I get it. A lot of people don't want to go into the meetings for certain reasons. You know, the biggest one I hear is, what if someone sees me? And it's like, well, they're there for the same reason you are. So I don't think there's going to be any judgment, and that's all good. And if there is, you know what, it's, you know, like it should be watered off a duck's back. But yeah, it is. As I say, in the 5 years that I've nearly 5 years that I've been sober, the whole, you know, recovery community has kind of just grown so massively, and I mean, I shouldn't even call it the recovery community. It should be just, I don't, some people don't like the word sober, or, you know, what is it? You're alcohol free. So all these terms, because there's so many people that are just, they don't want to drink, not because they had an issue with it, but because maybe it was having a negative impact on their life, or they just want to try it. And I think that's great. I think people should try things, because if you don't like it, that's fine. You know, go back on drinking. I think people that do dry January, and if they're struggling by day 14 and they can't, if they're counting down the days till February, I think they need to have another look at their kind of behaviors with that, because I do think there's a lot of people out there that potentially are on the way to have a problem, but they haven't quite woken up to it yet. Because maybe I think I knew I had a bit of a drink problem, but I think I just thought, this is me, this is my lifestyle, fuck it, I'm a bit of a lush, whatever. It's not really having that negative an impact on my life. But it was, because I wasn't doing the things that I wanted to do. I was doing photography, but I was just basically going in and doing the basics. I should have been out doing the arty stuff that I'm kind of doing now, like I could have developed my photography from a young age, and I'm not bitter, and I'm not kind of going, oh my God, my life. I'm happy with my life now. In fact, I'm more than happy with my life. But I think back then the alcohol was definitely holding me back. It's not a creative juice. It really isn't.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting what you say about when we're in that headspace of, I get this a lot, that people think they're losing out. Naturally, they're going to think they're giving something up. Life's going to be boring. I'm going to miss out if I stop drinking. And it's an unrealistic for me to think that they're going to think any other way, because you
Hmm.
don't know until you've kind of got to the other side and you've had spent enough time away from alcohol to believe that, and filled your life up with stuff that does align with you intrinsically, and you kind of find joy in other things that work and align with you, that you're going to think life's going to be dull without it. And and that's where the ambivalence lies, I guess, because people are going to drink. People are going to drink because they think there are positives to it. And apart from that little bit of a high for 15, 20 minutes, an hour, we sell ourselves, we sell our soul, we sell the next day, we give it up, don't we? For that little high. And it's the perfect trap, isn't it? Because we have that little high, and then we feel shit the next day, and what brings us back round to feel good again is another drink for another 20 minutes and an hour, and then we do the
Hmm.
cycle again. Yeah. And
It's
regardless of how
weird.
much people drink, yeah, that's often the cycle, isn't it?
Yeah. And like, imagine if you went out for a meal on a Friday night and you ate something that you'd never had before, and it made you dog sick for the weekend, and you'd be like, not gonna have that again, am I? But will we do it with alcohol every weekend? It's like, oh, I'm so rough, I'm gonna have a McDonald's, and then, but we just accept it. It's like you are physically ill, and as you get older, it gets worse and worse and worse. But we don't think, we know what's caused it, but we don't think, I'll just knock that out. It's crazy. Like, we have a thing over here called, so Tynwald is the name of the Isle of Man government, and it's the oldest continuously serving government in the world. Like, historically, it was set up by the Vikings in 11 something, I believe. So Tynwald Day is always the 5th of July, unless that's on the weekend, and then we get a bank holiday. So this year it was on Monday, and my fiance and the kids, they're all involved in the Manx dancing, which is amazing, but it's a long day. Last year I was doing a market stall because I did a bit of photography, selling my wares, and by the end of that I was shattered. But I didn't want to go to the kind of the marquee, because there's all the dancing and there's a lot of drinking, and I'm still, I do go to social events and all that, but I like it when I can kind of, right, I'm out here now. But Jen was like, no, 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 come to this, and there's going to be bagpipers at the end, so you'll love that. And I was like, yeah, I know, but in my head I'd built it up that everyone's just going to be these drunken imbeciles and repeating themselves and all that. So I built this up in my head, but I was like, no, no, I'm gonna come, and I'm gonna basically, raw dog it. I'll get to the end and I'll be like, right, I'm never doing that again. Do you know what? I had one of the best nights ever, best days and nights this on Monday there, because it was, yeah, there was a few people drinking, but we were just kind of, we had our little camp chairs and we were dotting around different people in the crowds, different friends and all that. Nobody was kind of belligerent or coming over and going, do you know what I mean? I'd built this up in my head,
Mm.
and it wasn't that, because it was just people out having fun. And I'm sure there was people like that, but I didn't see them, and it was nice that I didn't have to kind of associate with that. And I stayed to the pipers, and it was great. But I do think there is a lot of, when people are out drinking, there is a lot of that kind of, they just get repetitive. And I'm just like, being sober person, I'm like, right, it's time for me to go. So I do go to social events, but I'm like, 10, 11 o'clock, that's kind of enough for me. And actually, to be fair, that's what time it finished at on on Sunday. I would never be doing like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning like I used to. But that's maybe an age thing as well, you know.
Yeah, maybe it's great, isn't it? It's a perfect excuse when you're not drinking to be able to get away at a sensible time and then get up at a sensible time. And I'm with you totally on these socials that I've been to, and it took some time because I'm more introvert, so I kind of prefer the one-to-one stuff. And outwardly, I might look a bit extrovert, but it's quite difficult in those scenarios where you've got loads of people around. And that was a struggle for me, kind of being in those socials, because I always find people's extrovert nature comes out after a few beers or glasses of wine. So I found I'd like, it was my superpower. To have a beer was like the superpower. I kind of bring out my extrovert self. So it's kind of that I had to kind of work with. But once you work with it and you kind of
Hmm.
find yourself at those socials, getting on with it, as you said, enjoying it, you don't have that dip where you need another beer to keep on that high. You kind of stay nice and level. And it just builds confidence over time. It builds confidence to know that I can do these things without having a drink. And yeah, and you do notice other people's behaviour, don't you? Like you said, the spitting and so on, and it gets worse, and all the repeating, and it's like, it's time to go now. I mean, the best
Yeah.
best part of the night happens before 10 o'clock anyway. It all gets messy after that, doesn't it?
It does, and like you know, I guess like going back, I was quite an introverted person, and I can be, you know, I like to talk, but only as you say, like in small groups and things like that. If there's loud music, and I'm going to sound like an old man now, if there's loud music and you know I can't hear people, I don't like that because like I can't sit and have a deep and meaningful conversation with someone. You know, I don't just want to be shouting in someone's ear and then turning my ear to them. You know, it's like, but the alcohol did obviously help me to kind of. It's almost like a shield, isn't it? The alcohol, and you're invincible and you're out there. And like you're saying, the extrovert side comes out, but also the ego comes out. So if you're out and there's lots of these people about and they're mostly just like waiting for their turn to talk rather than actually listening to you, you know. Whereas I would rather just go and have coffee with a few people. Whereas, as I say, Monday was different because we were out in the field. We weren't right in the thick of the marquee. Jen and I went for a bit of a boogie, and then we came back out and we were sat outside, and I could just have really nice conversations with people. Some people that I didn't know, people that I did know, and it was just lovely, you know, because the weather was great. And that to me is like a perfect night rather than this just shouting, bawling, doing stupid things, trying to outdo each other, the ego taking over, and then waking up the next day feeling like absolute shit. You know,
Yeah.
it's
And that
it's
ego,
crazy.
yeah, that
Yeah,
ego gives that space to allow you to say the shit that you didn't want to say, and you wake up the next day thinking, "Did I say that? And why did I say that?" And it's great not having that the next day because you're kind of not saying the stuff because your ego's not kind of front and center.
yeah. I mean, I used to think I loved alcohol, and I was like, if I could just harness it, because I said like the first hour or so, maybe of a night, I'm like on form, I'm funnier, I'm better than my sober self, or this and that. But that doesn't last because as you know, you kind of drink, and I used to be at the bar, basically two for me, one for them. So, you know, come like 1 o'clock in the morning, I was kind of useless, but I was always trying to get that even keel. And then I suppose when you know I found cocaine, that was kind of it was easier to do that. But then it's still a harder maintain through the night, and then does that turn into like 2 nights, 3 nights? So yeah, it's a bit of a. But as I say, that never really became a problem for me. So it was mostly just kind of drinking first hour on form, and then a bit useless towards the rest of the night. So yeah, it's I still just find it bizarre. But as I say, you know, I don't like I don't want to be all judgy and things like that and start saying to people, but I say to people it's like kind of the unveiling of the matrix for me because I'm like, I'm on this side now, guys, and I'm like, do you know what? It's bad for you. It makes you a bit of a it changes your personality basically. You know, I know that's not with everyone, but you know, you get people a lot of drink, maybe 3, 4, 5 drinks in, it changes them. They either become, you know, very outspoken, too outspoken. Some people then want to fight or they become argumentative. And I know I'm doing the extremes, but you know, let's be honest, the police would probably have a much more chilled night on a Friday and Saturday night if people weren't drinking. Because now you've got, what is it, prinks, pre-drinks?
Is that what they're called? I've not heard of
That's
that.
what they call it now. I mean, we used to do it as well, but now there's a name for it. It's called prinks, pre-drinks.
Hey,
because
right.
it's so expensive. I guess when you go out, you go around someone's house, get a couple of bottles down you beforehand, and then you're out in the town, so you're already
Yeah, that always happened,
planted.
didn't it? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But then bartenders have got that apparently the responsibility to not serve anyone that's drunk. They wouldn't be serving anyone on a Friday and Saturday night, would they? In the towns in the
Yeah.
UK, it's just yeah. So it's yeah. So like ah, when when it did become, I mean, would you say it became a problem, the alcohol, or was it just more of a lifestyle choice for you then, Mike?
Yeah, I think I think there was it was approaching a problem, and
Hmm.
when I framed this, I always kind of used the word it was quite a vanilla problem. There was no rock bottom, but there was one particular incident that was talking about off air, and there'd been a few incidents like this, but it was my mum's 70th. I was over in East Yorkshire, and I'd gone a night before because my partner was at an event in Liverpool. So I live in Anglesey, it's kind of halfway.
Oh, we can see Anglesey from the Isle of Man, or
Yes,
just the town
on a
just
good
north
day.
of.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Holyhead, is it?
Yeah, Holyhead. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I had kind of a get together with my dad and my brother and my mum the night before. Went down on my own and loads of beers, loads of whiskey, and felt pretty shocking the next morning. And we had a meal booked somewhere in Hull, so I went in, had a meal, and to get through the meal, I thought, this idea of hair of the dog, this is going to get me through because I felt absolutely shocking and really, really bad, as you know, as you do.
Hmm.
And I had a couple of beers, and yes, it did the trick for about half an hour. Um, and yeah, I felt even worse. And then my partner was meeting me from the station after this meal, so I went to meet her, and I was just absolutely useless. I remember getting the train back to the village where my parents live on the outskirts of Hull, and I was just
Hmm.
feeling shocked. And she was talking to somebody on the train, and this young girl, woman, and having a real nice conversation. I just couldn't get into it. I just felt like I just wanted to be off that train. I just didn't want to be anywhere. Didn't speak to anybody. Got over to my parents. Got into bed. Went to sleep. My partner ended up walking the dog on her own for this 4 mile walk. It was a lovely day, and I missed out on all that. And yeah, basically missed out on the night as well. And it's just like I'd had situations like that in the past,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's a binge and it's a miss. But I had this awareness over time, and probably going through my sort of study of counselling and PD groups and all the good stuff that happens to understand more of why we do what we do. And it just felt like there was something seriously misaligned, and I need to stop this. So yeah, and that was the point. And in November, and it's interesting because I thought it was November. It was November the like mid-November or end of November. And I thought, a New Year, I'm gonna ditch the booze. I need to get through Christmas. And I'm saying this because a lot of people do this. I've got this holiday coming up, or I've got Christmas coming up, whatever. For me, looking back, and it worked for me. I bolted therapy on in January, and kind of that held me to account. But I think I see these clients sometimes, and they say, when this date comes or when that date comes. And many people would say, well, if you've got that opinion, there's always going to be something in the diary. There's always going to be a reason not to give up. But I don't know, I feel slightly different with that because I did that and I succeeded. I always, I'm starting with a client actually it's going to be Friday, but I'm starting a client on Sunday and Saturday. And yeah, she was going on holiday and she's come back, need to get the holiday out of the way first, start on when I get back. And I don't think it's an issue now. I think if people are motivated enough, if the time's right, then the time's right. And I'm really confident that over those 100 days that I'll see my clients at the end in a
Yeah, yeah,
situation where the pull is more away from alcohol than it is towards. And
yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that happens in that time. But yeah, for me, it was kind of, yeah, it was one of those things of, yeah, it's something in the future. You need to get over that. I'm going to start on January the 1st. And it worked. It worked.
And I think it's right what you're saying. There is a lot of people that, oh well, I'll do it this, I'll wait for that, and then I'll do that. But then there is always going to be something after that. It's a birthday, or it's Glastonbury, or it's a holiday, or whatever. I think Christmas is a definite. It's a good one to leave it till after because it's the end of the year. It's a big family thing. Everyone's off work. I'm not saying to people wait till Christmas from now. Do you know what I mean? But for you, obviously, it was kind of close to that time. You've got that you've got that cut off point for the new year. And it is a great time to start because everyone's doing it in dry January. Nobody really goes out, and then but then if you're saying, well, there's this little thing that I'm going to go to in February. Do you know what I mean? There's always going to be something. And what I say to people is, like, there was a guy on, and he was saying his mate was going to Glastonbury. And I thought, just tell him, go to Glastonbury and try it sober. Because like you're going to enjoy it more, and you're just if you are sober curious and you definitely like want to do this 100%, then no, there's no time like the present to start it. And I reckon going to Glastonbury and doing it sober, yeah, it's probably going to be tough for the first day or two, but actually there's no bands on if you go down on the Wednesday till the Friday anyway, so you can get into that rhythm of learning the site, working out where everything is, and then just becoming this sober kind of guru of the site. Looking back at any festivals I went to, I didn't have an understanding of the festival because I didn't know where I was half the time because I was leathered. Do you know what I mean? Whereas now it's like you've got this full, almost all-encompassing kind of sober head on, and I think it's definitely much more mindful, much more enjoyable for any situation. So I'm so glad that I go to a lot of these things sober now because and like I say, tell your clients there's no time like the present. But I think it sounds like if they do one thing and they say, well, I'm going to do this out, get this out of the way, and then that, and if they keep adding more things, you're like, you're not committed, are you?
Yeah, 100%. And it's really interesting what you say, Jimmy. I don't know what your experience was like, but I was really looking forward to the first Christmas sober. It was like, I can't wait for this. Family coming around. I'm going to be sober. I'm not going to have those times where I'm fighting to kind of communicate. The days are too long because I need the beer to get on. Because Christmas they used to be long drinking days.
Yeah.
And it was like, how do we get through that? I thought, oh, that's over. I used to have, Christmas was a night. The last few Christmases drinking were a nightmare because it was like, it's I used to have to try and get a drinking plan in order, knowing that something was going to be drunk around after midday and then evening, and just try and get it all because I'd be like flagging in the afternoon.
Yeah. But you need to maintain it, don't you?
Yeah, so I was really looking forward to, it would have been Christmas 2024 last year. And I got COVID on 21st of December. I was gutted. So I was totally sad. Well, they have this family engagement starting and everything. So I haven't had a Christmas sober yet. So I'm gutted. I'm looking forward to this one. Can't wait.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. My family, they're not massive drinkers. My brother likes to drink. My dad likes to drink. My mum used to. She doesn't really drink much anymore. A glass of wine will give her a headache now. So I'm like, well, don't bother with it, mum. But back in the day when we were all a lot younger, it was a big old knees up at Christmas, and it was like starting from about 11, 12 o'clock. And I just thought, this is my type of heaven, family's there. But as I got older, my drinking increased and theirs kind of went down. So it was kind of like, people would start saying things like my brother would say, like, maybe don't start on the spirits until a bit later, or do you know what I mean? Just these little comments. And then obviously, there was a few Christmases where I would go out on Christmas Eve and then not come back until 4 in the morning, and then I'd be hanging on Christmas Day, and it was like this. It's kind of ruining it for the family. So, my first sober Christmas, I got sober in the August 2020, and then I got on a thing called disulfiram, which is called anti-abuse. So if you take alcohol, it makes you really, really ill. So I was like, I'm going to use that as a crutch. I don't want to be on it for a long time, but I thought I'll go on it for 6 months, get through Christmas, and then, I'll be plain sailing. But by the time it got to about 1st of December, I was over my 3, 4, probably 5 months about at that point, maybe 4.5. And I was like, no, I'm pretty solid now. So I came off of it. And I think you have to come off that about 2 weeks before you can actually have a drink. It's not like I'll stop taking the pills today and I can have a drink tomorrow, because it's still in your system for a good old 2 weeks. So I came off it in like 1st of December, but I didn't tell anyone. Didn't tell my family because I thought they're going to freak out and think, oh, he's going to have a drink. And it was, I don't think it was a tough Christmas, but it was a different experience, if that makes sense, because it was sober. There was booze all around me. I don't think I was fully kind of like white knuckling it, but it was an experience, and I got through it. And then I told my family after, I said, listen, I'm not even on, disulfiram, and they were like, oh, well done, and it was like, it was a big deal, but I enjoyed it, and it was my first sober Christmas. And now Christmas, I just absolutely love. It's like I spend it with my fiance and her kids, and there's no boozing, because the kids are there, and it's like, it's just a different kettle of fish from when I grew up and what I kind of was used to. And I'm not saying that like we used to drink parents were drinking when I was the kids' age. Do you know what I mean? But they would probably be having a few sherries or something like that. But it was only when my brother and me became adults, it was like, yeah, we're gonna have big ones. You know, people get older and behaviors change. And but when I was doing what I was doing, my behaviors weren't changing, so that was kind of becoming an issue. And it took me a few years to kind of realize that, I guess. But once I did, it's like what you're saying. My whole outlook on life has changed, and I normally, ask my guests if you could go back to like when alcohol became a problem, would you kind of go back and tell yourself not to drink? But I don't really think that kind of,
Still wouldn't. No, I still wouldn't. No,
works for
no,
you.
no.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't. I would just stay who I am because this life that I've got now is what we were saying earlier. My photography I'm doing again. I've got my own gardening business. I'm doing the podcast. I've trained to be a peer mentor. I'm getting married in a few weeks. Do you know what I mean?
Isn't it?
And all I did was give up one thing.
Mm.
And it's like people might say, "Oh, a lot of these things would have been happening." Nah, they wouldn't have. They wouldn't have because I was wrecked. Do you know what I mean? And I was just like on my way out, and I think that's the whole point. Like, and I'm not saying that you would have ended up like me, but I think if it's having that negative impact on your life, there's a guy at the meetings that I go to, and he said, if you've got a problem with alcohol, it's only going to get worse. You're never going to have a problem with alcohol and then it get better. Do you know what I mean? By taking
Mm.
putting a lotion on it, that's not going to happen. It's going to get worse because it's a drug at the end of the day. So I think the more and more people that are, well, not even recognizing that it's a negative impact, it's like, why are they doing it? Because people are going vegan. I mean, my fiance's vegan. I eat a mostly vegan diet, but I wouldn't say I was pescatarian or flexitarian or whatever. I have a healthy diet. Sometimes it has meat in it, and a lot of the times it has veg in it. But you see all these people having new vegan diets, or they're training and they're doing all these different things. Like, I'm an avid runner. I'm training for the Great North Run. But you do all these things and then you drink on top of it, and it's like, why? Why are you still doing that?
Yeah, yeah,
You're
it's crazy.
caring about your health so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I always look at
And
it as the foundation. That is the foundation. Yeah, you're doing all this really good stuff, but if you've not got a good foundation, then why are you bothering? Because I think a lot of the time, I think I was in that space, and I think for me, I kind of was always into fitness, probably from about the age of 30.
Mhm.
And yeah, there was a real ambivalence, from one point of kind of into fitness, but still every now and again going out partying, taking drugs, drinking still, and carrying, and then the drugs kind of fade away, and then you kind of still drinking and still doing fitness, and it's like life is so much more peaceful when you're aligned. And whether it's in fitness, it means that actually, if you really care about being fit, being healthy, then drink isn't a part of your life, in my opinion.
It shouldn't
And
be, yeah.
yeah, and there's the foundations, isn't there? This foundation of health has got to be kind of, yeah, because you get people that bark on about the healthy this, the healthy that, but they'll still advocate a drink. It's just nonsense, isn't it?
I think it's so ingrained in our kind of makeup in society that so much so that I think when I went to the doctors about 6 years ago and I was, complaining of being depressed and this, that, and the other, they just put me on citalopram. They didn't once say, how much are you drinking? And to be fair, citalopram wouldn't work because I was drinking so much. It was only when I gave up that actually started kicking in, and I think that was a good 2 years later. But I think the doctors have definitely got a duty of care to say to people, like, especially coming in with depression, how much are you drinking? What are you, and like, not just say maybe cut it down, maybe cut it out for 3 months, see how you feel after 3 months, and then come back. But they don't, because they know. I think they know that that's going to probably fall on deaf ears, because people will be like, well, I don't have a drink problem. It's like, I mean, we're not saying that. We're just saying give up the depressant poison that's going into your body and
Yeah.
see how you feel, you know.
Mhm.
But they don't seem to do that, and it's just like they'll go, here's, have some pills, and that'll fix you. Whereas, like, I'd rather not have any medical stuff going in me, medicines going in me. I'm very much so like looking after what I. Yeah, like we only get one vessel, don't we? So it's kind of like, and hopefully I'm not too late to start really taking care of it, because I smoked, I drank, I took drugs, I ate really unhealthily. My weight has fluctuated over the years, but it's kind of, I'm 45 now, and I'm like, right, you know what? I wanna have a good long life with my new wife and her kids and all of that stuff.
Mm.
So why would I want to put poison in me? You know,
Yeah,
it's
100%. And we're so the human body is so regenerative, if that's how we say it.
yeah,
It's just
yeah, yeah,
regenerates,
yeah.
isn't it? Yeah, you know, and it's that's the idea. You know, we're going to heal, we're going to recover,
Yeah.
unless you
To a
do
point.
extreme, yeah, to a point, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, ordinarily we will recover. It's hard to see it when we're in situations of being really unhealthy or drinking too much or too many drugs, but you know, more often than not, there's a recovery sort of route from that, and yeah, it's just getting people to understand that. And yeah, there's a lot there actually. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I think there is a big shift in society, as I say. There was a lot of people at the weekend on alcohol-free stuff, and just that whole, we're out in a field, and yeah, there's alcohol there, but not everyone was. People they're more cautious about like how they're getting home, or looking after the kids. All of these kind of things that I think is definitely changing, because I think back in our day it was like, there was a lot more drink driving. I'm not saying your parents or my parents did it, but I think having a couple of pints and driving home with a family in the car was probably okay. There wasn't that many cars on the road. I'm not saying it's acceptable, but I think Scotland have now got zero tolerance. You can't even have a pint. Because I think why should they have a pint here or in England? If you're going to have one, in my mind, that's like, well, one's never enough and a thousand's too many. Is that the right way around? No. Yeah, one's never enough and a thousand too
yeah,
many. I think
yeah.
that's it. But you know what I mean? It's like to then, expect. Yeah, I just think people are being a bit more cautious of it now. There is still a massive issue out there, but I think the younger generation that are coming up are definitely a little bit more savvy about it, because they can Google things. They know what's bad for them, what's good for them. But also, I don't think they like getting out of control, and I think we did.
Yeah, and I've also got this theory about that is that we didn't have phones when we were kids, did we? So you get
No.
absolutely leather. Somebody's going to take a picture of you, and in a real state. I don't know if kids are that like, and you get on certain social sites and you can see your picture on there when you've had 7 or 8 beers. It's not a good sight. It's not a good look, is it? You know, and 1,000 other people see it. I wonder if that's part of the reason as well.
I think it's a huge reason, and I think, if, say for instance, you're 14, 15, 16 at school and you've gone out at the weekend, you've done a really stupid thing, someone's clocked that and they've videoed it and then they put it on Facebook, you're maybe the last person to see it, but the whole school's seen it, or they're passing it around in WhatsApp,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's like it finally gets to you and you're like, oh my God. Do you know what I mean? Like, I did stupid stuff when I was a teenager, but no one was filming, you know. You would notice someone with a camcorder like that going, and I'd be like, "Well, I'm going to go over there and do my stupid antics. You're going to take ages to follow me." So yeah. I definitely think there's a shift. Hate to say it, but I think the kids are doing a lot more recreational drugs than alcohol. But is that a better thing? Well, I think it's less of a killer. You know,
mm.
Although I've heard that there's a thing called cat bladder. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, which is really dangerous. It's kind of like, and there's no kind of remedy for it. Once you've got it, you've got it. And there's kids like in their early 20s with cat bladder. I never enjoyed ketamine myself, but yeah, it's a weird one. Mike, do you think that alcohol still has a place in our society?
great question. I used to think it was before I was kind of sober curious. I thought it was always a social lubricant.
Hmm.
And I think David Nutt shares that view. You know, I think he thinks it's good for a social lubricant as much as the amazing work he's done over the years. Um, I don't know. Is there a place for it in society? If there ever was, I think we've passed that point because Um, there's been too much damage done, I think, to say there is place for it. But it's not going to. We're not going to go back. That's the thing. So I'm not anti-alcohol because, as you said before, there's plenty of people that can have a drink and they're happy with that, and that's fine. And you know, and that's fine. Each their own. But I think there's too much water under the bridge for us to go back. So I think it's always going to be in society, isn't it? And is there a
Yeah,
place for it? It's like you said earlier, you know, if it was brought out now, it wouldn't be allowed. You know, it just wouldn't be allowed. If somebody came up with alcohol, it hadn't been in the society, it just wouldn't be allowed. Yeah.
yeah. And
But it's there, isn't it? And we just live with it now.
we live with it. The governments make an absolute shit ton off of it, so they're not going to get rid of it anytime soon. But I think it's happening. You know, there is talk of getting labels on bottles just to warn people, just to educate them a little bit more about, so that they pick up a bottle and it doesn't just say drink responsibly, because, they're like, oh yeah, I'll drink responsibly, so that's fine. But whereas if you pick up a bottle that says this may cause cancer, or, this may cause, 7 types of cancers, or pancreatitis, or, all the other things, they might go, oh, do you know what? I've got stuff to do this weekend. I might just lay off that for a couple of weeks. And it's just about bringing that to the forefront. Nobody's saying we're going to go back to prohibition, but I think it's just a kind of education is necessary, and stop glamorizing it, you know.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
I see people in the rooms, and when they first come in, there's a sorry state, and I know that's the opposite end of the spectrum. And then there's even further where there's people in hospital that they're basically being told, if you have another drink you're going to die, and all they're thinking about is, where can I get that next bottle of wine? But what's being shown to us is this, like Love Island type kind of scenario with, you know sexy people on the beach drinking, Bacardi and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah,
it's not the reality, because let's be honest, those beaches, you see them at 10 o'clock at night, and there's people passed out with their face in the
yeah,
sand,
yeah,
and then the darker side of that as well, when people are a bit lubricated and they've not got all, they're vulnerable, they've not got the full use of their faculties, and their
yeah,
sensible
100%.
head on. Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. And that thing about drink responsibly, it's just an admission of, like, it's just pushing responsibility onto the drinker.
yeah.
And it's like we've done our job. We've said drink responsibly, and it's just ridiculous. It's just it really frustrates me, that, because
They're washing their
yeah,
hands.
the washing hands. That's exactly it. Yeah, the washing hands of it. Yeah, and
Yeah,
that thing you just said then again about, you know, people getting into vulnerable situations. I work with a charity in my counselling, that works with sexual abuse and sexual violence, and I have so many clients that have got into situations because of drink, and yeah, they're now suffering with trauma and trying to work through that process. So yeah, all the big stuff, that all the bad stuff that happens in society as well due to alcohol. Yeah, you kind of yeah, you wonder, is there a place? Probably not, but it's here
yeah.
to stay, isn't it?
It's here to stay, and it's that catch-22. What you're saying about people that they're trying to work through the trauma that was caused by alcohol, whether it be being jumped, or raped, or whatever. But a lot of people then fall to alcohol to work with the trauma. If they're not seeing a counselor or a therapist, they're turning to alcohol to kind of combat the trauma that's caused it. So it's this vicious circle, and it's really kind of, yeah, as we say, it's ingrained in our society as being, oh, you've got a problem with drink. Oh, well, you're obviously not doing it well enough. You've not got a full handle on it, and it's like, no, it's this socially accepted drug that is highly addictive. So if someone's fallen off the wagon, it's not their own fault. It's just that how did I become an alcoholic? I hate that word. How did I become a problem with drink? And all my mates that I went to school with didn't. My brother likes to drink. He's got the same pretty much DNA makeup as I do, but he's never had a problem with that. You know what I mean? I think that I just caned it maybe harder and longer than the rest of them, and became addicted to it. But also there's different aspects in life. There was depression that was possibly brought on with drinking too much, and there's all these different aspects of going up and down, and but at the end of the day, it is a drug, and the more you do it, the more you abuse it, it's gonna get hold of you. So yeah. What? Go on. Sorry.
I was going to say, for many people, it's a solution, isn't it? You mentioned that
Yeah.
going through trauma and then reaching for that drink. The drink at the time is a solution. It's just a poor choice of a solution, um, because it's not going to fix the problem. But it takes you out of that mind space. It takes you out of having to engage with those feelings of injustice, or trauma, or whatever that might be.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was pure escapism. I wasn't happy with my lot towards the end, definitely, and it was the only thing that had kept me company. I've written a letter that we did in rehab. It was my best friend, and I had to say goodbye to my friend, because it would just let me escape out of whatever my life was at that point, and I didn't know how else to do it. But looking back, it's like, my God, I'm out of that now, and it was the problem. It was, as we say, it's the solution, but it was the problem as well. And it's the one thing that we think the actual solution is the thing that's killing us, the madness. So what advice would you give to people that were maybe sober curious or on day zero, day one, just ready to have a new way of life?
Yeah, I get lots of people reaching out on Instagram about early stages, day one, day three, day four, and so on. And I think the motivation is really high at that point,
Hmm.
and it gets them through the first days or maybe a week. But I think it's really important to put structure in place, because when the motivation fails or falls off, you've got structural sort of guide points in place. So I think there's one saying that I love is don't bring motivation home. So clearly you don't want to have alcohol in the house. That's the best case. But if you're with a partner that's still drinking, that's fine with that, and you want to give up drink, that could be a challenge. And I guess the other thing I would say, apart from just structure and planning, is think of the habitual way in which you consume alcohol. It is quite habitual for many. So those habits of when you drink, and try and crack those habits. So for some people, it might be getting home, relieving the stress. For others, it might be in front of the TV.
Hmm.
So if that's the place when you drink, then you change the habit because you get a cue, routine, and reward. You've probably heard this, the habit loop. So if you can change one of those, you can actually put more structure in place to avoid, in the early stages, to avoid the drink. Yeah, so there's kind of, yeah, so I would say structure, just,
Structure.
and also kind of be aware of the habits and those cues that drive you to have that drink. Change it,
Yeah.
have a week not sat in front of the TV, have a week off work, let's say, and those things to get you through that early stage allow you back that bit of awareness, and in
Yeah.
that awareness, then really start to reflect, journal, all that good stuff, and
Yeah.
start to see the benefits that have come out of it, and celebrate the wins, and really focus on what you're gaining and not kind of focus on what you're missing, because it's easy to think at the start, oh, my mate's out and they're out in the pub or whatever. I've got an AF beer and I'm missing out. But it's like, actually, if you focus on what you can feel like tomorrow, actually focus on the good conversations you can have right now, focus on the confidence you're building in this environment. And it takes time, but you need to stack those experiences. And
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
building of time. You probably found the same, Jimmy, as well. I think the longer you go on, the more you can see how much life has to offer without alcohol.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. And I think that saying celebrating the wins and the little wins, because a lot of people, especially younger men and women, they feel this draw to be out with their friends, and they feel like that it's like the FOMO, it's like fear of missing out. And if they're in it, but it's like just have patience, learn patience. I've learned a lot of patience in sobriety. And I think being a bit older, I've got JOMO now, joy of missing out. I'm like, I'd rather
Yeah,
stay in with my cats and
yeah, yeah,
watch a bit of telly or catch up on
yeah.
Netflix. But the younger people are, it's like just take your time. You've got your whole life, but let's get this bit sorted first. We're talking like 3 months till you start feeling the magic, the pink
Mm,
cloud and all that, and then
mm,
you can start, integrating yourself back in. And there's no one saying you can't go out during the day, because let's be honest, hopefully your mates aren't getting on it at 12 o'clock. Go and have coffees, do that kind of thing. That, and those, like you say, those are little wins. If you go out with your mates and go, right, if they go to the pub at 3, 4 o'clock, you go, I'm going to go home. I've got a run to do tomorrow. All these little things. But I think people are becoming a bit more understanding and respectful when people say, I'm not drinking, I'm not sober.
yeah,
There used to be that
yeah,
whole like,
100%.
what?
Yeah.
Why are you not? And people are like, nah, their attitudes are changing. If there are a few people still out there that will be like, what are you doing? Because it is the only drug that people kind of admonish you for giving up. It's like,
Mm,
you've given up heroin. Well done. You've given up smoking. Well done. You've given up boozing. What? Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah.
like, but I think that's changing. And I
Mm,
think, the younger people, who are the people that would definitely, like you say, they've got that patience thing. They want to be out, they want to be doing things, want to be part of whatever's going on. But I think their mates will be understanding, that they're like, oh, okay, you've given up boozing, that's fine. And I think they'll be like, they're very interested in trends, aren't they? So if they see a few people doing it, they'll be like, oh, this is trending, maybe we'll do it.
mm.
But I think that is the case that's happening. So yeah,
Yeah, and as you're speaking, then Jimmy, I'm just wondering about your viewpoint on this. With us living in
yeah,
this
go on.
world of so many kind of instant sort of responses, instant gratification through social media and stuff, and we want stuff straight away. I wonder if that makes it psychologically more difficult to kind of make habit change, like removing alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could be, because I think Well, it's the whole CBT, isn't it? Changing your kind of outlook. I think we are in a society where, like, look at reels. They're like 2, 3, 20 seconds long, and it's like, and I see our lot. They're like, there's definitely an addiction there to the phones. Do you know what I mean? And it's like if they can't get their phones or it's been taken off them because they've done something, they're like, and I see the kind of the wild-eyed stare from, like, my days when I was like, you're not boozing tonight, or this, that, and the other. So I
Mm.
definitely think we are in a society where everything moves quickly, fast-paced, and yeah, it could be that we don't want to give up something that allows us to kind of just escape as well, I guess, because I've always said to people, when I gave up, the first year I moved myself into a little cottage up in the hills here, and it was a little thatched cottage. It was beautiful, picturesque, but it was just this lovely little place, and I could just cut myself off. I worked for myself, so I built up relationships with my clients, customers, and that. But at the end of the day, I could just go home, and then I could spend the weekend in my cottage. And, I would see some people from my meetings and all that, and I was still doing that. But I just needed to be comfortable with myself in my own space, in my own head. Do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of young people are scared to spend time on their own. I think they constantly need this kind of feeding of interaction, and if it be on your phone or that. Sometimes I just sit up in the cottage, candles on, maybe a bit of music, and just reading my book. Do you know what I mean? Just utter peace. And that's maybe an age thing as well, but I never could do that when I was younger. I always needed to have someone about, or not always kind of communicating with them, but just so they were there. But then I
Mm.
learned how to just be in myself. Do you know what I mean? And
Mm.
once I could do that, I felt like I was ready to come back in, and then that's when I met Jen, and yeah. But I would never have been able to do that before, and it was just drinking, socializing, going out, and I think it's a distraction. It's distractions, isn't it?
Yeah.
The phones, the iPads, the computers, the TV, whatever.
Yeah. And it's
Distractions.
Yeah, and in that it's the opposite of consistency, and it's absolute consistency that we need to get to a place where we see alcohol and the damage it causes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, it's a fascinating topic, and I know some people that get sober and they just kind of like they want to distance themselves from the whole recovery world. I need to be in it. I need to steep myself in it. Need to be surrounded by it, not to keep myself sober, but just because I find it fascinating, and I want to, constantly be improving the chances of people getting sober and staying sober. Because it's still abysmal. Like 2 to 4% of people that are as bad as I was that get into recovery and then stay there. Do you know what I mean? But I think the more and more people that are doing it in society, it becomes easier. And I, as I say, I think it's a fascinating subject, and I think we're constantly learning different aspects of it. And I think a lot of things that you learn in AA, or in CBT and all that, you can use in normal life anyway. So it's, keep your side of the street clean. Play the tape forward if you're thinking of, going and doing I don't know, making some choice or decision in your life. It doesn't have to be drinking. It's like, where's that going to lead you to? What's going to end up if you do that situation, and then you play the tape forward. So yeah, it's fascinating. Um, Lastly, Mike, what have you got, like a book or a film that's kind of to do with recovery, sobriety, that you've read or seen recently you want to share with us?
Yeah. I went to the cinema to see a release, and it was from a famous book, and I can't remember. It was filmed in the Highlands, actually, of Scotland. What was the name of that film?
The Outrun.
The Outrun. Yeah, amazing
Yeah,
film.
it was
Incredible.
Saoirse Ronan. Yeah,
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 I loved
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah,
It was
amazing.
it was it was beautifully shot, and just so brutally real. Like, I went to the cinema with it, and I was just looking over at her at certain points, and I was like, my God, it's such a true depiction. Like the bit where she hides the vodka down the back of
Mm,
the stem of the sink, and
yeah,
she comes running in and she has to go and do that. I was just like, I mean, mine was in the cistern of the toilet, but it was close by, you know. Yeah, great film, great film, and great book as well. Yeah, Amy Liptrot. I'm trying to get her on the podcast, but she's not responded to me yet. So maybe I'll tag her in this one, and she'll listen to it and say, "Oh, come on." But I think she's kind of got to the point now where she's kind of moved away from the recovery side of our journey, because I think it's been well over 10 years, maybe 15 years, but she's writing books on seaweed now, so that's her bag now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting,
absolutely.
yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, cool.
Very.
Well, yeah, thank you so much, Mike, for giving up your time. And I know it's been a long day for you, so thank you for staying out. We've been on for about an hour and a bit, so thank you
Yeah,
so
thanks for having me,
much.
Jimmy. It's been great. It's been great to hear your insights as well, and yeah, I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been great getting to know you, and we'll stay in touch. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, Jimmy.
Cheers, Mike. Bye bye, mate.
Bye, bye.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Great conversation. I know I always say that, but I get the best people on. Really good conversation. I know we touched on talking about different cultures around Europe, which they I don't know about their kind of cultures and their binge drinking issues. I'm sure they do have it, but what I see is this, you know, the football fans going abroad for like the Euros or club football or whatever, and I'm not a big football fan, but what is it like, Champions League and all this kind of stuff, and they go and they just get absolutely pissed up and end up destroying like parts of cities or parts of stadiums and all of this. And it's like, you know what, if you're big drinkers and the whole thing is, it's like, oh, it's kind of sad if you can't handle your booze, isn't it? You're kind of looked down upon if you can't handle your booze. None of them can handle the booze. That's why they're acting up and doing all these stupid antics. You know what I mean? So it's like maybe they need to rein it in and start showing the Europeans that Brits can drink, because I don't think Brits can drink. I think we just get absolutely leathered on. We don't know how to drink properly. We just go and abuse it and don't do it sensibly. So that's, I think, where a lot of our systemic problems come from, is not respecting alcohol. Maybe Europeans do that at home, and when they go abroad they have a bit more kind of decorum and they don't want to show up their nations. I don't know. But all I'm saying is from what I see from TV. I mean, the Brits did it even when the English fans, when we hosted the Euros, and we got to the final. I say we. I'm Scottish, so I don't know why I'm saying we. But they got to the final, and there were so many people that couldn't believe. Well, not they couldn't believe they got to the final, but they basically didn't have tickets to get to the final, so they basically rocked up outside Wembley or whatever it was and started just drinking at like 10, 11 o'clock. There's a great documentary on Netflix about it, and it's just absolute madness. Like people climbing on buses and breaking into the stadium, and it's like you didn't get tickets, so don't get pissed up and do something you wouldn't do if you were sober. So yeah, that's kind of my kind of thoughts on that. I like what Mike was saying about the pull away from alcohol being bigger than the pull to. It's a very kind of astute kind of statement that he just he was super curious, a few negative impacts on his life, but when he realised that the pull away from alcohol was greater than the pull to, that's when he kind of decided to knock it on the head. Yeah, again, we're talking about, there's always something that in the future you're not going to give up for. It's like, oh, I've got a birthday, or I've got this festival to go to, or we're going on this big hike, so I'll drink. Yeah, there's always going to be something. So maybe if you are in that situation, then choose one, drink for that, and then the next one, you don't drink for that. Just one. You don't keep going on the next and the next and the next. Just do the first one that's coming up, drink for that, and then stop after that and do that thing sober. Go to that thing. Don't shy away from it. If you feel confident enough, go to it sober, and you'll have a much better time. Believe me. Yeah, and then I just think we're talking about having structure of your kind of you know, how you're going to give up, like what date you're going to give up, you know, all the kind of ideas that are, you know, like where are you going to avoid, what people are you going to kind of associate with or not associate with because, you know, there might be a trigger, all that kind of thing. And then celebrate the wins, you know, every time you get a day, 2 days, 4 days, whatever you go to event, or, you know, even if it's like, you know, finishing work on a Friday and then going home or going out and having a soft drink, you know. I think if you are really bad with it, avoid the pubs to begin with anyway. But if you do have to go, I'd avoid the AF stuff as well. The alcohol-free stuff cannot be good if you're as bad as I was right at the beginning. Yeah, so thanks again, Mike. I do have to say the Isle of Man government is apparently over 1,000 years old. The Isle of Man celebrated the millennium of their government in 1979. So what's that, 979 when it was first set up by the Vikings? So quite an old government. So yeah, everything's good over this side. Sun's still shining, and I'm going to go and chill now. But as I say, thanks again, Mike. Thanks to everyone that's been listening. Thank you to some Canadians. I've just noticed that I'm back. I'm in the charts, the mental health, alternative health chart in Canada. So thank you to the Canadians for listening, and pop a comment in if you're a Canadian and you're listening. On Spotify, Apple, wherever you can put a comment on the podcast platform, then please do. Yeah, but take care of yourselves, and until next Sunday. Sunday's a new day. I hope people are enjoying the video as well, so let me know if you're watching it on video. And you know, we're trying to kind of set up the studio a little bit more. I think that, you know, the first kind of videos, there was a bit of Jim wasn't too happy that there was some stuff in the background or whatever, so we've got it looking a bit nicer now. I might take the blur off, I don't know, but it's meant to have this kind of depth of field thing going on, but it's just more blur than actually aperture. But yeah, stay safe, stay sober, and stay supportive. Thanks, guys. See you next week. Bye bye.